All right. So it is with purpose. It is Tim Cullen. Tim, thanks so much as always.
Thanks for having me back, Seth.
So I just told you I spoke on these three issues with Julie, manufacturer perspective from Colorado. Wanted to speak on these three issues with you, retailer perspective from Colorado, because Colorado is different than every place else on earth. Would you agree?
It is in a very special way.
In a very special way, particularly in cannabis. And so Safe Banking Act does pass the House, and vociferously so. We have banking in the title, and so we got all sorts of votes that we wouldn't have necessarily had. Over 70% of the House, over 200 co-sponsors. Send it to the Senate, and we will wait on word. But we have officially passed federal legislation, at least in one house, which is standalone cannabis legislation. And right. For that, advocates and activists of yore and today need to be obviously congratulated and commemorated.
Mm-hmm.
Having said
of course, but that's what there is to celebrate, is that a piece of standalone legislation made it through one house of government. I don't think it will have an impact on Colorado Harvest Company. Currently, I think from a retail perspective, at least, and especially from a customer perspective, the banking thing has already been solved. It's not a big issue in the news anymore. People are not talking about it. But from running a business standpoint, it's still a huge issue. We do have a checking account, and so do all the other retailers, and vendors have checking accounts also. But that's where the banking ends for these companies. We still can't accept credit cards or debit cards at our retail locations. We still can't take out loans from banks for capital. We're still really restricted. It is down to a checking account. But a checking account, honestly, is what you need to run a business. So we can do direct deposits for our employees. We can write checks to vendors. We have a ledger that we can compare our books against. We have a place that we do deposits. So in that sense, I'm very, very grateful. But there is more to banking than a checking account.
More to banking. You just mentioned what those pieces are, and we'll tackle those as we go. But,
Sure.
That basic banking, that basic checking account, that took a while. And I'm sure that you're one of the folks that had at least one bank account closed, et cetera, along the way. Yes?
Seth, we've had 12 bank accounts closed. As a matter of fact, I had my personal bank accounts closed by one particular institution. So yeah, it's been a challenge. And then, on top of that, we're also audited by the federal government for 280E in 2015, looking back several years. And that was one of the things they held against us, was that there are gaps in our banking history, and we can't provide records for our banking history. And I just about fell out of my chair. I was like, no, this is just like the icing on the cake for the most unfair thing I've ever gone through. So, But yeah, that was one aspect they held against us, was that we didn't have the bank account. And I was like, that's not by choice. So
280E, of course, a gargantuan issue that we wasn't in the preamble here. But what I'm hearing from you is, if this were to pass the Senate, essentially what the bill would do was bring other states up to the starting line, which you have just passed, as far as a basic checking account, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think that's good.
Sure.
It's been baby steps the whole way. That's another one. Let's keep moving forward. It's not where it needs to be. It's still not on par with what other businesses have access to. Sure. It's still un-American to be a customer and not be able to spend your money in a retail store in the middle of Denver that's licensed and legal. You should be able to spend your money where you want to.
But
I think it's going to take people being angry about that.
Yeah, that does, though, paint the picture, and that this is why we're talking about this with you, is it paints the picture of where federal legislation is, or isn't, for that matter. Federal legislation isn't quite yet 10 years behind reality. Mm-hmm. Right? Fair to say?
It is. It's 10 years behind, but I feel like, one way or another, the next president is going to legalize cannabis. It's coming. It is really coming. We've been talking about it forever, Seth, years now, and it's really coming.
Whoever's president after Inauguration Day, right? 2021, I guess. All right, so that's Safe Banking Act. Let's move on to what some folks call the vaping crisis. And so some folks who call it that would be the governor of Massachusetts, who has banned all vaping products. Even the governor of Oregon has banned all vaping products with the exception of full spectrum cannabis. Where are you as far as the vaping crisis on your desk in Colorado?
So we have followed the Colorado rules. Colorado came out with their own rules. They did not ban vaporizers in any way, shape, or form. What they did was limit what additives are allowed to be in there. And there were 3 categories that they specifically called out. We didn't carry any of those products anyway. And so we didn't have to remove anything off of our shelves. But the irony of the banning things associated with marijuana is that I think most folks who use marijuana are pretty comfortable with the government not sanctioning what they're doing. It's a hard way to go about solving this problem for me. And I followed it very closely, and my understanding of it is that it is not the legal license market that is creating this situation, that it is a black market situation. And I hope in some way that a tragedy like this, where people lose their lives through an unregulated market, leads to another example why legalization should happen. For the same reason, no one is going blind from bathtub Jen these days, Seth. It's because alcohol is regulated, and cannabis can be too, and Colorado is a great example of that.
A few legal vapes were sold. So a few from the illicit market made their way into the legal market and crossed the finish line as far as sales. But 99% of what we're talking about is the illicit market. And if the solution to safe, sensible regulations for safe patient access, if the solution is legalization from prohibition, then the solution from legalization can't be prohibition. This can't be Ouroboros, which is what is happening elsewhere in Colorado.
Right. I mean, yeah, it is interesting. The most ironic thing I saw about it was a Facebook post and someone talking about that, and someone said, "Welcome to the gun debate." That's the whole thing on our side too. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of that, but I guess that really is. If you make it illegal, there will be a black market for it, and cannabis has been a great example of that, and legalizing it has been a great example of how it can be regulated, and taking products people really want off the shelves only puts it back to the black market again, which is where the problem is coming from. You know the irony as well as I do. I don't know the answer though. The answer really to me is more oversight, that these companies should, there should be some degree of oversight as to what people can put in these products that other people are inhaling. Public safety is important. It's important to the industry. It's important to you and me as cannabis users. We want to have clean cannabis out there, and this is a bad example of that.
If we know what every ingredient is in every product that's on our shelves, then we're good. And so that is exactly what Colorado has done. Incidentally and interestingly, I can't wait. I'm going to have a gun/cannabis conversation with Carlos Curbelo soon. I'll let you.
Oh, how exciting! Oh yeah, wow.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, so I really do. I hope that ends soon. I don't want to see people damaged from vaporizing cannabis. I really believe it's one of the safer ways to consume.
The problem is that it will continue. The issue will metastasize itself because it is an illicit market issue. We will continue to have an illicit market in the United States based on what we were talking about with the Safe Banking Act. We're only there as far as federal legislation is concerned. And we have states that are pushing folks from legal market into an illicit market. We can have a debate on whether they actually will go or whatever. But the whole point is we want to eliminate the illicit market, not make it larger.
Right. I'm also just as a side note, just totally baffled how this has become an issue now. It would seem to me that this would have all been a problem 10 years ago when this was all starting to take off. I'm surprised that in 2019, vaporizers have become an issue.
The timing
Did
is
not see that coming.
remarkable. I'll give you that.
Right.
All right. Speaking of timing, here's 1090. We went through it and we got it passed, and then now it's going to be alive.
Right.
At the same time that we are experiencing a market correction, in quotation marks, for public companies. What say you, man from Colorado?
Wow, there's a lot in there, Seth. Well, 1090 is a good thing for Colorado. It is what allows Colorado cannabis companies to compete on a national level. There are other states who moved forward with allowing public companies to be on license years ago, and we call that state California, and Colorado competes directly for those investor dollars with California. And without that as a possibility, we have fallen behind. People are overlooking Colorado. Now that is going to change. So I think it is the next step for what a lot of these businesses are going to do in the very near future, including Colorado Harvest Company. We're going to roll up with some of the best folks in the industry, and we're going to create the largest brands in the industry. And we're going to move forward as a group together instead of trying to work through these issues like 280E and banking and such as small business owners with our personal, savings on the line. We're going to combine together and be larger public companies that actually have the resources to make a difference in what legal cannabis looks like in the future.
So I guess tomorrow, put your seatbelt on. Here comes yesterday.
I like that, Seth.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Please pay forward. Tim Cullen, thank you so much. Go ahead.
Let's follow up on it in a month here. We'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be interesting here for a little bit in Colorado.
It's going to get fun.
This is the biggest change that's happened in the Colorado cannabis market in, I would say, since 2014 when legalization happened. So
sure,
it's a big deal.
1284, right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, Tim. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate your time. Can't wait to check in with you later.
You are awesome. Thank you, Seth.